Hello, my dear friends. You know, this past summer, Faggy and I were in Switzerland to celebrate Tzvi Landel's bar mitzvah. In Switzerland, there are thousands and tens of thousands of mountain climbers. Wherever you go, there are mountain climbers. You could tell because they have the backpack and they have the water bottle and the mountain boots. They're in the streets, they're on the bicycles, they're in the trains, every place. They're ubiquitous in Switzerland because there's many mountains in Switzerland, especially if you go to the Alps. We spent the Shabbos in the Alps. In the Alps, everybody that's walking in the Alps is a mountain climber. And I was wondering to myself, what motivates people to climb mountains? Why are they so interested in climbing mountains? Nobody's forcing them. Nobody put a gun to their head. It's arduous. It's difficult. It's hard. There's a certain element of danger that you could fall and you could break your leg or even worse. So why are they so excited, or why are they so motivated to climb mountains? So you say, well, because when you get to the top of the mountain, there's a beautiful view. But guess what? Faye and I, we went to a bunch of different mountains, and most of the time we took a cable car, and it took us about 10, 15 minutes to get to the top of the mountain, and we saw the beautiful view. So everybody could do that. But there were people, when we got to the top of the mountain at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there were people who started at 8 o'clock in the morning. It took them the whole day to get to the top of the mountain. Why didn't they just take the cable car if they wanted to see the view? So there's something about climbing a mountain that it's attractive to people. We have, even in the shul, we have people that are mountain climbers. It happens to be fantastic exercise, and everybody should exercise. But what's motivating people to climb mountains? So I was thinking, in the Rosh Hashana davening and Yom Kippur, Maariv, the both nights of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur concludes with Kapitel Chaf Dal, the 24th Kapitel Tehillim, with David Mismor. David HaMelech says, Miyala v'har Hashemu miyakam mikol kacho. Who will climb the mountain? David's talking about mountain climbers. Who's going to climb the mountain of Hashem? And who will stand in his holy place? So I was wondering, obviously it's a metaphor. When David says, Har Hashem, the mountain of Hashem, you go outside, there's no mountain of Hashem. We live in a flat, everything's flat here. There's no mountain of Hashem. So what does David mean? Mi Har Hashem? He's using it as a metaphor. It's a metaphor to become close to Hashem. But why does he need to speak about it in terms of mountains? So I was thinking, because it's human nature. God implanted in human beings the nature that they want to overcome, that they want to conquer, that they want to go to a higher level. They want to achieve more. That people are ambitious, even to the extent that human beings want to conquer new frontiers in outer space. Why did God put that nature in man? Because in order that a person should be motivated to become closer to Hashem and not be satisfied with the status quo, it's a lifetime journey to climb the mountain of Hashem. And that's why that's why David refers to it as Mi Alav Har Hashem. Because just like there's physical mountains, which are a challenge, so there's the greatest and most, it's maybe not the physically not the highest, but in terms of what it represents, it's the highest mountain. It's the greatest achievement. It's to climb the mountain of Hashem. And a person will say, well, you can't blame me for not going up the mountain. Who wants to go up a mountain? So no, it's human nature that people climb mountains. Go to Switzerland and you'll see. They all everybody's busy climbing mountains. So, but a person has to channel that drive to want to overcome the challenge and get to the higher level. That has to be channeled to climb the mountain of Hashem, the mountain that brings you closer to Hashem. And the tragedy is that oftentimes people climb the wrong mountain. Faggy and I once went on a hike, and not in Switzerland, but in New Jersey, and we went up or maybe in New Hampshire. We went up a mountain. We parked our car in the parking lot. We went up the mountain. Took us about 2 hours. Then we came down, Our car's gone. The first thing I thought was, somebody stole my car. What am I going to do? I'm stuck here in the mountains of New Hampshire with no car. And then I realized not only is my car not there, there's no cars there. There's no parking lot there. I couldn't understand it. How could it be that we're disappear? And then I took out my GPS and I put in the address where we originally arrived, and I saw him 2 miles away. And what obviously happened was that on the way up the mountain, I made a detour. I took the wrong path. It's easy to get lost when you're mountain climbing, especially somebody like me who doesn't know anything. So I went the wrong way, and we ended up on the next mountain. We climbed the wrong mountain, and that's when we came down. There was no parking lot there. It took us a long time to come back to the mountain where we started. In life, people invest in overcoming and in achieving, and the people go to school for 30 years in order to be able to be successful in their professions, and people work hard, and people spend their whole life trying to achieve and to have more money and to be more successful and to be more prominent and to be liked by everybody. That's all of the whole world. That's society is busy climbing mountains, but the tragedy is that if they didn't climb the Har Hashem, then they missed the boat, because that is the most important mountain in the world, is to climb the Har Hashem. And people oftentimes climb the wrong mountain. They don't realize they're going the wrong place. I use Waze like we all do, but I travel so much. I'm constantly on Waze, and I'm fascinated by something that in Waze, and that is that when you're on Waze, that they show you where you are, and they show you these little graphics of everybody on the road that's near you that's using Waze. And the thing is that they have different level. They call anybody that's using Waze is called a Wazer. And they have little images of Wazers, but there's different levels of Wazers. There's baby Wazers, and that's a little a little person with a pacifier in his mouth. And then there's a grown-up Wazer where there's no pacifier. And then the next level is a Waze warrior, who's a Waze with a shield. It's like a little Pac-Man. And then there's a Waze knight that has a sword. Next time you use Waze, you'll see. Take a look. And then the highest level is Waze royalty. Waze royalty has a crown. Guess what? I achieved Waze royalty. Could you imagine that? I'm on the top, and it's the 1% of the population is a Waze royalty. So now you know something special about me, that I'm a Waze royalty. So how do you go up the ladder to go from one level Wazer to the next? And when you're using Waze, they ask you questions. Is the traffic still here? Is there still a policeman? Is there still a car broke down the side of the road? If you answer the question, each time you answer the question, you get points. And if you get enough points, you go from being a Waze baby to a Waze grown up, and you keep on going up and up the ladder until you become a Waze royalty. And why did they create these silly levels of Wazers? It's because that's how they motivate people, so that people will respond because they use that information that they get from people as they're driving to share with other drivers to predict the traffic and the best way to go. So that they have to motivate the people. Why should people answer their questions? They motivate because people know if I answer the question enough times, I'll become a Waze knight and then a Waze royalty, like I am, to reach the highest madrega. It's unbelievable. It's like people are babies. What's the purpose of being a Waze royalty? It's nonsense. It's ridiculous, but it works because people want to climb the mountain, but somebody who spends his life doing things that are not important, it's like becoming a Waze royalty, investing your whole life in becoming something that's totally unimportant and insignificant. There's the famous story of the Netziv Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. When he was a young boy, he was Rosh in Volozhin, but when he was a young boy, his father hired different malamdim for him, and he was a batla, and he wasn't interested in learning. And he overheard his father talking to his mother one day, and he was crying, and he said, Naphtali is not going to amount to anything. He's not going to become a Talmid Chacham. Let's take him out of the cheder, and let's teach. Let him learn a parnasa. Let him become a tailor. So Naphtali, young Naphtali, said, Abba or Tati, I'm going to change my life around. Don't take me out of the yeshiva. I'm going to devote myself to becoming a Talmid Chacham. You'll be proud yet. So within the Tziv, when he was many years later, when he finished writing one of his most famous svarim, Lahamik Sheila, on the Shiltas, so he made a Suda, and he said, the reason why I'm making a Suda is because he told over this story about when he was a young boy. He says, had I not decided to turn my life around, so I would have been a tailor, and I probably would have been a very good tailor, and I would have worked hard, and I would have given staka, and I would have learned Shulchan Aruch every day for a few minutes, and I would have learned, it was before Daf Yomi, but I would learn a few minutes of learning Gemara or Mishnayos. I would be Marvis Sedra. I'd be a good Jew. And he says, and then what would happen after 120 years? I would come up to Shemayim, and God would say to me, Naphtali, how come you didn't write the Hamik Sheila? And I would say, what's Hamik Sheila? I never, what is that? He says, it's a sefer on the Shiltas. I said, what's the Shiltas? I don't even know. Shiltas is a sefer written by the Gonim. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is, so I'll say that I would have said, what do you want from me? I'm a tailor. Tailors can't write svarim. What do you want from me? So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I know you're a tailor, but you didn't have to be a tailor. There are certain people that are tailors. It's tremendous that they're tailors. They do it l'shem shemayim, and they do it as a chesed, and that's what they're meant to be. Everybody has their mountain they need to climb. But the Nitziv, he was destined to be a goyin, a genius, and to write svarim. So the Rebbeinu Shalom would have said to him, Naphtali, you think I gave you all the brilliance and the genius that you have, the ability to be mechadesh and to be creative and to write. You think I gave that to you so you should sew buttons on people's shirts? Is that what you think it was for? And he said, it would have been devastating that if the Rebbeinu Shalom had said that to me. So that's why he says, that's because I turned my life around and I became a Talmid Chacham. That's why I'm making a special Suda. So we all have tremendous kaiches. We have ability, and we're all driven. But we have to ask ourselves, are we climbing the right mountain? Are we going up the Har Hashem? It's very admirable. People who are mountain climbers, I'm a kind of them. I wish I was a mountain climber. It's terrific exercise. And everybody should, I'm a firm believer in exercise. But if a person spends his whole life, the only mountain that he climbs is the Mount Everest or other physical mountains or the Swiss Alps, but he doesn't climb the mountain of Hashem, the Har Hashem, then a person has missed the boat. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't embed within us the desire to climb higher in order just to be a mountain climber. That's also important, but that's not the end goal. It's not to see the view on top of the mountain. The end goal is to become closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom, to reach the Har Hashem. There's a famous story where Shvadron told the story that he heard from his Rabbi, that he was looking out the window, the Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, and he looked at people, and he saw on their foreheads Pei Nun, on a matzeva in a cemetery, a tombstone. It says Pei Nun. Its abbreviation stands for Po Nitman. Here is buried so and so. So he's looking out the window, and he tells the person next to him, he sees that people walking out with Pei Nuns on their foreheads. He says, what do you mean? So he says, because look, that person, he's a genius, he's brilliant. He could have used his intelligence to master Shas. And look at that person, he could have been a tremendous posek, and that person, he has a speaking ability. He could have been a tremendous Rav and influenced and inspired thousands of people. So on their foreheads, I see the letters Po Nitman. So he says, in the cemetery, there's Po Nitman, because Po Nitman, here's buried a Rosh Hashiva, here's buried a Rav, here's buried a posek within the person. In the cemetery, the matzeva is written by the tombstone maker. He engraves it on the tombstone and he writes Po Nitman. But when you're alive, the person engraves it himself. If he's not climbing the Har Hashem, then the person decides himself to have a pei nun on his forehead. It's the tragedy is, he says that there is a cemetery for people who have died, and there's a cemetery for people who are alive. There's a Lebedeker cemetery, and there's a cemetery in Yiddish you say for Teiter. There's the dead people for dead people. That's where they bury the people after they die. But people walk around. It's also a cemetery when you see all the people that have the great potential. And if a person fails to climb the Har Hashem, so then they're walking around with a pei nun on their forehead. So David HaMelech says, Miyala v'Har Hashem, what do you need to climb the mountain of Hashem? And to reach the peak, the top of the mountain. So one of the things that he says is, Asher lo nosol ashav nafshi. So the plain meaning is that he didn't swear in the name of Hashem in vain. But the Malbim says it could also be interpreted to mean, lo nosol ashav means he didn't carry in vain nafshi, my soul, God saying, my soul that I gave him. He didn't, and there's a creed, there's a way of reading it, nafsho. But in any event, he didn't waste, he didn't walk around. The body carries the soul. A person could carry the soul for his whole life, and it could be lashav, it could be for naught. The neshama has tremendous kochos. The body is strong, the body can become a mountain climber. But if all the strength is invested in climbing mountains or getting a better job or a higher position or having more money or having a fancier house or becoming more famous and having more friends, whether it's on Facebook or other place, if that's what one's life is about, and going to restaurants and the museums and all these things that are important for a person to have some form of relaxation, but if that's the whole life, so then it's the Nasal Hashav Nafshi, that he's spent his life doing things that are ultimately of no value. Because when a person passes away and he stands before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he asks, so what do you have to show for yourself? And if he's going to say, I got a promotion at my work, I was the president of the company, I earned $10 million, the Rebbe should say that was Nasal Hashav Nafshi. How come you didn't accomplish the Mi Yala B'Har Hashem? Because that is the most important and the greatest challenge in a person's life. I want to conclude by playing for you a beautiful niggin for Mi Yala B'Har Hashem. It's by Yitzhak Fuchs. This is for Yitzhak Fuchs. Not coming out. Hashem miracle. I wish everybody a ksiva v'chsima tova. It should be a great year. We should be happy, have happiness and health and gesund, and our children should give us nachas, and we should celebrate simchas, and we should be able to be mikayim. But David HaMelech says, Mi Yaleh B'Har Hashem Umi Yaakov Ben Tom Show. Good to you, everybody.